So that,
Yes.
it goes back to Jim Collins. You got to have the right person in the right seat on the bus.
Yep.
And you might have the right person, but they might not be on the right seat on your bus. They might be good in the front desk, or they might not be good as a tech, but as a practice manager, they all of a sudden excel. That face-to-face human interaction with a customer, they might not be good at, but they might excel at the details in that actual management piece that needs to be done, the day-to-day ordering of supplies and scheduling and payroll. But they might be awful at customer service. And if they speak to another client, you're going to lose half your client base.
You're going to lose it. Yeah.
So it's figuring out where to excel. And I know that, there's two parts of that too, right? It's not just the practice employee. It's also the owner themselves, right? The manager, the practice manager, the veterinary owner. And in the circles that I'm in with other entrepreneurs, we talk about operating in our talents and gifts, and everyone has 3 top talents or gifts, figuring out what those are. And then you should be operating in those talents or gifts 80% of the time as a business owner, whatever it is.
I totally agree. The problem is that oftentimes, again, I think this harkens back to the original question, the early part of our conversation, that difference between leadership and management. I think when we put on our management hats, we are looking at individuals as assets to get us to our goal of whatever we're trying to accomplish, right? And so how do I fit all the puzzle pieces in a way that makes sense for me? That's problematic. So an example of what I mean by this and how this ties to that path pillar and everything that you just shared. I worked years ago. I worked with an associate veterinarian. Now, the hospital that I worked at was her second practice. The first practice that she was at, she ended up leaving kind of in a bit of a ball of flames, if you will. That practice expected all of their veterinarians to do things exactly the same way. You're a veterinarian here. You're going to see patients for a number of days. You're going to be sort of our treatment doctor for a number of days, and you're going to do surgery for a number of days. And that's just part of how we do things here. Well, she was terrible at surgery, not because she was unskilled, but because it made her so unbelievably anxious to be in the OR that she really, really struggled with it. And this hospital kept trying to force her as a circle into a square hole. And they, gave her mandatory continuing education to try and improve her surgery skills that she was weak at, very management kind of approach thing.
It wasn't a mechanical error. It was a mental error, or not error, but just a mental block.
A mental block, and something that really you could think of it as sort of like flipping the script on what you and your entrepreneurial colleagues talk about. Instead of putting her 80% in the place where she lit up, where her strengths and gifts were, they were forcing her to spend 80% of her time and energy on something that just drained her. And eventually she left. The hospital that I worked at with her, for whatever reason, somebody in a position of authority there got her to open up enough to share that she really just didn't want to have to do surgery. And so they created a position for her where she never had to do surgery. And as somebody who only saw appointments, she was one of the top producing doctors in that practice because she loved being in the exam room with clients so much that her best self came out every time. And because they were willing to make this slight concession for her, instead of approaching things from,